Hello, everyone. Justin Haggerty here from the International Drone Racing Association, IDRA. And today I want to talk or speak with you about insurance and some of the vulnerabilities that currently exist in our community, in our hobby, FPV racing, mini quad, drone racing, whatever you want to call it. And so I want to go over some of that with you. There's some misnomers. There's a lot of different things that people already know. So I'm pretty much just going over it again and shed some light on different areas, the goods and the bads that exist out there in terms of liability insurance, different hull protections that are out there, and then some of the vulnerabilities that you can experience as a pilot or as an operator in the hobby or the sport. So I'm pretty much going to go by a blog that I wrote a couple weeks ago. It's a good start. And then as we get further, I'll talk about some other links and some different other sites that you can go to get more information about what I'm bringing up. And then I'll open it up for questions. Just comment. You can say hi too, but comment and bring up any questions, ask any questions you have, and I'll try to answer them here. If I can't answer them here, then we'll just schedule another session to where I come on and try to answer them again. All right, so why do I need insurance? I know you're thinking that, hey, I'm just a recreational pilot. I just fly for fun. I'm just a hobbyist. Why do I need insurance? Especially when I don't think I'm doing anything dangerous. I'm just flying in my backyard or going to a local park. Do I really need coverage? And I would say yes. I think you can't afford to take the risk of not being covered. You never know what's going to happen. You don't know when something comes loose on your quad, you lose control of it, you lose signal, you fly out of the park and you don't disarm, you hit a car or you hit some dog that's running around, you hit some woman or a man that's running by the park. You never know, right? And so that's why you need to be insured to protect yourself from any type of liability, right? Any property damage that you could cause, and God forbid bodily harm, which is the worst. What's up, Nick? How's it going, man? So that's what I would say. You can't afford to take that risk of not being insured. It's like driving a car around without insurance, which is illegal, but for obvious reasons, right? Not only to protect yourself, but to cover the liabilities that exist out there from other users, right? Protect other operators, protect other people's houses, and then their health. And obviously the biggest thing, you can't afford to lose everything you've worked hard for, and that means not only your financial stability, but the financial security of your family. You, as an individual pilot, especially recreational or hobbyist, but even if you're a freelance aerial photographer or doing some surveying work on your own, you on your own don't have the financial, like big corporate money. You don't have those means to protect yourself and to fight those major legal battles that you could get drawn into if you cause an accident. So Nick Lang is saying a buddy of mine crashed his wing into a car at an event and they had to pay like $1,000 out of pocket. Nick, was that a deductible or did he not get covered? Oh, AMA didn't cover it. I'd be interested to see why. Maybe he'll answer that later. Okay, so we'll get into some things. If you want to find more about, because I just brought up some legal, that there are legal battles, there are pilots that get sucked into it, either because, hey, their insurance provider, either secondary insurance or something happens where AMA doesn't pick it up and now they're sucked into a lawsuit. There's 2 links. I did put all the links into the text, different links that I'll bring up. One, you can go to Find Law, and it just brings up, or the page brings up different drone accidents and different worst case scenarios of different things that have happened to relating accidents with drone operators. You can also go to Rubric Law PA, and the link should be the second link in the text that I put below the live video. And it's just say drone lawsuits and litigation database for 2018. And it's just a long list of anything drone related. You can look up things like lawsuits against the FAA, lawsuits against different drone companies. But what we're talking about is lawsuits against drone operators. And you can skim through and find ones that have been brought up, litigation on harm caused, or irreparable harm caused by property damage or bodily harm because of unmanned systems accident. And so as these become more frequent, right, so our hobby's growing, and there's more and more drones that are coming onto the market. There's more operators that are coming on as hobbyists, and they're buying some type of aircraft at the local Toys R Us, especially now that they're on sale, because with Toys R Us going out of business, going to Walmart, picking them up, go to Best Buy, picking them up. Oscars, yeah. Thanks for for bringing that up about your laptop. By the way, yeah, we're working on that. I'll message you offline. Yeah, so there's more users coming on. There's way more drones that are flooding the market. You can easily Google and look up the statistics on how the market's growing, especially on the personal recreational side. And what that comes is not only a challenge for regulations and making sure people know how to fly safely and operate safely, but the risks associated to that operation is getting higher just because of the sheer volume of people flying. And they not always know where they can fly, when they shouldn't fly, and how to fly safely. And so that vulnerability that big insurance agencies see in our market, they just see dollar signs. They see a community or a new market in need, and people that don't necessarily know too much about policies and what they actually need for their specific application in terms of how they operate and what they're operating. So, I mean, some agencies are not even writing new policies to fit unmanned systems and the pilots that are operating them. Some liability policies are like for charter airplanes, and they're renaming them, change some of the verbiage around, and then selling them to drone operators for several $100s a year, sometimes $1,000 a year for liabilities, for even like a simple $750,000 to $1 million per liability policy. And so some pilots are being taken advantage of, and it's not their fault. You know, I didn't know a lot of this in the hobby until we started selling insurance last January, and that's why we jumped in it. We needed, if we're serious at IDRA about trying to grow the community, then we need to figure out how to protect it. And we were seeing too many things going on of pilots being taken advantage of by overpriced policies from big insurance companies, misnomers that they can just use their homeowner's insurance to cover it, which definitely you need to look into that. Most homeowners insurance will not cover above $15,000 for liabilities that come from you operating. and then you think that AMA with the secondary insurance is going to pick it up. Not always the case. So you definitely need to look into it and find the specific PDFs and legal documents that show that you're protected or what's being stated by companies, instead of just believing what they're coming out and saying. So for homeowners insurance, I just brought this up. If you want more information, like I said, I put all the links that I'm bringing up on the text below the video, but you can go to uavcoach.com /drone insurance guide / and on UAV Coach, they just talk about drone insurance, a step-by-step guide to liability and drone hull insurance. Read through that. There's a lot of useful information covering everything from just simple liabilities to how do you protect or get the insurance or for your hull covered in case, like if you're flying a really expensive aircraft. Even DJIs are super expensive nowadays. And you want to see if you can get that covered in case you crash it, and be able to get a replacement drone, just because they're so expensive nowadays. And he also goes into the misnomer of and the vulnerabilities around just relying on your homeowner's insurance or any other type of umbrella insurance to cover your liabilities. It's just not smart to leave it up to that kind of a policy to protect you. And it's much better, more encompassing for potential liabilities to find an affordable primary insurance or liability insurance policy that's built, like designed for our use, and that the premium's not that high. You look for something that doesn't have deductibles, or if it's lower, and that it covers you no matter where you're flying, as long as you're adhering to regulations, and look at the fine print and figure out if the policy you have is only going to cover you in specific locations. Like, is the policy only going to cover you at parks? Or is the policy only going to cover you if you belong to a club or if you're at a designated flying area? These are the things you need to look and see, that to make sure that you're covered no matter where you're flying. So that kind of brings me into the AMA. So the AMA is obviously a major representative for our hobby, for the RC community and the growing FPV drone racing community. And they're one of the big reasons why we got into this, to provide an insurance from IDRA for our members, just because of some of the issues that we were seeing from AMA. There was a lot of gray area in certain aspects, and for a secondary policy to have that many issues, it was something that we wanted to see if IDRA could put our foot in the door and see if we can offer something better. So there's several misnomers about the Academy for Model Aeronautics insurance that, and to be quite frank, if you bring some of these things up on social media, the people, the operators that truly believe in AMA, they're going to jump all over you, because what they believe is gold and anything else is just not pure. It's not true. Even though you can highlight and go through AMA documents and say, hey, this looks pretty, like you can make an argument against this, deny, and say that you're just hating on AMA. So I'm going to bring up some things that I think that we at IDRA think are just too big of a vulnerability that I, as an operator, wouldn't put my money towards, especially for secondary insurance that's not primary, and I'm not 100% guaranteed that what I'm paying for is the service I'm going to get. So, the Academy for Model Aeronautics, AMA, they fully understand the issues with homeowners insurance and some of the other vulnerabilities that are out there with umbrella policies. So they went ahead and inserted themselves in our hobby with their secondary insurance, liability insurance that they were already providing to operators for model planes and model aircraft. The big thing that they claim that they changed, that originally for AMA, for you to get covered, you had to be flying on a sanctioned site, right? Approved site by AMA. But this is a AMA sanctioned field, just like a lot of the flyers clubs and flyers fields that you see for big model aircraft and RC planes, and that was the only way. That's a place where you are protected. You fly there with your AMA membership and your secondary liability insurance, and you're covered for any liabilities that could potentially happen there. And then here we come as the drone industry, as the FPV racing hobby corner of the growing market. And AMA wanted to include us into their memberships, include us into the insurance, but they realized that we operate in many more places than regular traditional RC planes and RC hobbyists. So they claim that you're covered anywhere. You're an AMA recreational user or member, that you're covered no matter where you're flying, as long as you adhere to regulations in their safety manual. Unfortunately, that's not true. And you can go to the links that I put up. I have several links to PDFs for the different programs I'm about to bring up with the AMA. So feel free to go check those out as I bring them up. You can also look in the blog that we posted a couple weeks ago, and we have screenshots of different PDFs that are highlighted in the specific areas that we're talking about. So feel free to visit and reinforce some of the things I'm about to talk about. So according to the main documents from the AMA, like general liability coverage for the AMA, you still have to fly on a sanctioned field. If you're not flying on a sanctioned field, then you have to be flying with a recognized AMA charter club that's then designating that this is okay, this is where we're flying. And this is to get the full liability coverage from the AMA, which is $2.5 million per liability. Now, I know a lot of pilots that have AMA. The vast majority of FPV pilots are AMA members here in the United States. And they fly everywhere. They don't necessarily fly in a sanctioned field. They don't necessarily fly with the charter club. Most of the time, they don't even fly in parks. And they swear they are covered. But you go into these documents I'm talking about, it's clear that they're not. And the other aspect, program or membership that the AMA created to help broaden users' ability to operate in different areas is the Park Pilot Program. So the Park Pilot Program is another membership. It's cheaper. It's less money to be per month or whatever for the membership, and it is allowing you to operate in parks, around the United States, as a AMA Park Pilot member. But here's the catch: the amount of coverage that you have decreases from $2.5 million per liability to $500,000 per liability. Now, some pilots have made the argument that, that's because the risk is lower, and that because of that lower risk, they don't need to cover you for as much. I'm not buying it. because I know how underwriters work, and I know how this whole insurance policy comes together when you're working with underwriters and different agencies to develop a certificate of insurance and figure out what the risk is and what they need to cover to support the risk. Because to me, based on my knowledge, that the risk, it would appear that the risk is higher. I am not flying on an AMA sanctioned field. I am not flying with a chartered club. There are no other individuals, either leadership from a club or people overseeing a field, that is going to enforce AMA safety standards on me while I'm flying. It's just me, or it's just me and a buddy. Now, there's less oversight. With that less oversight, there's a higher chance to you to deviate from those safety standards because there's no group policing each other, right? Without that group policing each other, like I said, there's a higher chance for you to deviate from those standards. So you operating on your own, in the eyes of the underwriters, in the eyes of the insurance agencies, is a much higher risk than you operating as a collective group, as a club, or on a sanctioned field. So that is why it is lower at $500,000 or $500,000, because they don't want to assume the risk of covering all the expensive liabilities that could come from you operating on your own and the potential accidents. So they are then saying, we're only going to cover small accidents, smaller damage, and smaller potential bodily harm that is caused, rather than the full 2.5 with a charter club and with at a sanctioned field. And so and I know guys and girls that, like I said, think they can fly anywhere. I am covered across the United States as long as I'm adhering to regulations. And fly in parks, prefer parks because parks are awesome. You fly around trees, fly in big open areas, and meet together, and park benches, whatever. It's a good atmosphere. That's what I'm trying to say. And they're not Park Pilot program members. So if you're not a member, Park Pilot member, you're not covered to fly there unless you're operating there with the club. You need to be with your charter club or on the sanctioned field. And so it's very clear when you look up AMA's documents to see that, and clearly people don't. AMA comes out and says, you're covered to fly anywhere, and it's just not the case. One of the other big things that is sketchy, no one's really brought the AMA up on this, but it's definitely a question that should be asked, especially when the legal language is so obtuse that you could challenge it in terms of the nomenclature of what we fly as hobbyists in the FPV community, or in drone racing, FPV racing, and what is being said by the AMA that is covered by the AMA. So if you look at the insurance summary, 2018 insurance summary, the facts about AMA's insurance benefits for individual users, the AMA states that this applies to accidents arising from the modeling activities of model aircraft, rockets, cars, and boats in accordance with the AMA national safety codes. So this obviously stems from the origin of AMA, right? Which is RC, line of sight, planes, rockets, boats, you name it, cars. I don't know if many AMA members just operate cars, but what I'm saying is that a lot of this language is what has been developed from an old organization that's been around for a long time, and them representing the RC community. Tell me that a mini quad or quadcopter or multi-rotor is a model of anything. I don't know of any major aircraft that looks like what I fly with or what we race with. We don't, as a community, we don't walk around and call them models. Though if you ever speak with AMA personnel, staff, go to a convention, a conference, whatever, they will always say models, 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 models. They call it, that's their name for what we fly. But it's not what the general public call it. It's not what we call it in our community. Any documents or any, you talk about it on social media, if you were to write some type of letter about it for a claim, no one is going to use the word model. It is not in our vocabulary to identify these aircraft. And what it is it's AMA adhering to what they have legally called the aircraft that belong in their organization, and inserting themselves into a new market. It's a business. They were running a business. They saw a business opportunity with a new aircraft, new technology, a new market growing, a new community growing out of the RC world, and they wanted to be a part of it. But they didn't change a lot of the documents and the written language to fully encompass, and to fully embrace us. So there's a lot of risk there. I've spoken with lawyers that have said that, yeah, you could challenge that in court. If you were denied by AMA, like Nick Lang just brought up, it was like $1,000 in damage denied, or if you were denied by another, your homeowners, and you were brought up on a lawsuit, or even someone challenged the AMA for representing you on your behalf, because of that, they could. Though it hasn't happened, so this is somewhat going out on a limb. But for me, if I was a paying customer, I would want to make sure that, hey, there's no gray areas here. There's no way that you could be challenged in representing me or protecting me. There's no vulnerabilities here, that your documents and the way you represent me and the way your insurance covers me is ironclad, not getting through it. I am covered 100%. I understand everything of how I can be covered, where I can be covered, when I can be covered. And with the AMA, there's just too many gray areas. And I just think that that's because they didn't fully lay the groundwork to really represent our community. And that's because they're RC planes. And they're still trying to work with us from that standpoint, because they weren't an organization that came or was birthed from our community. They kind of just came in and tried to take hold and represent us. So some of the other things, there's definitely a monopoly with AMA and trying to for the U.S. community. I know multi-GP, you have to have an AMA membership to compete, and especially, and that even goes to with some of the requirements to organize a race, right? And there's not always a chance you're going to get covered, even especially if you don't have a sanctioned field. I know a lot of multi-GPU chapters that don't get AMA insurance, that are denied, and they have to go out and find other insurance, because we have sold a lot of insurance to those events. So with that being said, you should not be required to have one insurance to compete in our hobby, especially from a grassroots level with the largest organization with multi-GP. You should be allowed to have any insurance as long as you're covered. Because at IDRA, even though we sell our insurance, we just want you to be safe. Yeah, we ask you if you have insurance to operate at our races, but our event insurance, our liability insurance for our events, for drone events, already covers you, because we design it that way. Covers all pilots, covers all staff, sponsors that are there, spectators, as long as you're flying in the actual racetrack, not flying outside of it, not flying outside of the net. that you adhere to our guidelines and our regulations, and you're good to go. And that's what I'm talking about. Organizations or agencies that take the time to write policies that are specific to the application that you need it for. Not something that was just renamed, slapped on it, drone liability insurance, or drone operators, or drone hull, and you go through it, and there's things that are covered that aren't even parts of an aircraft, of a multi-rotor, and you start realizing that they just renamed this. Like, this is for a plane, and this is not something that I need to be paying $1,200 a year for. And that's what I'm trying to get to look into what you're buying, read the documents, see if this was actually something that was written for you as a hobbyist, as a recreational flyer, and even as a commercial. Just flying DJI Phantoms and not insuring yourself to fly some Learjet. And that's what I'm saying. Just look out for yourself. Read the fine prints and understand what you're buying. Because in the essence of potential vulnerabilities or lack of coverage in certain areas, you could be buying something that's not even going to serve you in the time that you need it, and just leave you hung out to dry and fighting some big court case to keep them from taking everything, not only your business, but your house and the food for your kids away from you. So don't let that happen. So for IDRA, like I said, we've been doing this since last January. Our first policy there was 3 different policies. You could buy a liability insurance policy for 1 to 2 drones, and there was 3 drones, 4 drones, and then we couldn't get the underwriter to go any farther. In the underwriter's eyes, they calculated risk based off of the amount of aircraft you flew. So as you flew more aircraft or owned more aircraft to operate, it got more expensive. We knew that was an issue, but it was a start. We needed to get the first groundwork started with the underwriter to get them to understand our community and to design a policy specific to what one of our operators would need. And then we started to build a relationship. We started to sell insurance for drone events. First, I just started with partners for our Challengers Cup last year. And then we gained some trust and showed them how this can be applied beyond the Challengers Cup. So then at the end of last year in the fall, we started selling drone events to all events. So races, training events, even if you're training for like a Part 107, covering that, any educational exhibits. So organizing some type of drone event at a school, doing some demo at a convention or a conference, any drone related event, we can cover it. And that's $275 per liability, or $270 for a $2 million policy per liability, no deductibles. And it lasts as long as you need it for in terms of the event, the duration of the event. Then we were able to improve our individual pilot liability insurance. We got it down to where it no longer was divided by the amount of aircraft you fly. It was now unlimited aircraft, and it's one fixed price. So it did increase, but that was to meet the demand of the vast majority of members that we had, that when we took stats and try to figure out, or surveys to get statistics, the average number of drones that most people own is seven aircraft. So it went up to $265 for an annual coverage, which comes out about $220 or $22 a month, which is not bad for a $1 million per liability as primary, and no deductibles. So as long as you're adhering to regulations that are in effect in your area, or if you're flying in an area that doesn't even have regulations, and you adhere to our safety manual, you're covered. You fly worldwide. We cover around the world. We have members on every continent, which is awesome, as we're trying to grow and protect the international drone community. The only thing that we don't provide is hull coverage. That's another thing that we're still trying to figure out. And the underwriters just need more statistics. We're doing great. We have never, knock on wood, since last January, received a claim. And that's just, we hold ourselves and our members to a very high standard in how we operate as safe operators, and as operators that comply and adhere to regulations. I know there's a lot of bad ugly ducklings out there that just, they don't care. They don't care about the regulations that come out. They don't care if a government says you need to register your drones. They're like, I'm not going to do it. They don't care. Can't fly over roads. I'm going to still fly over roads. Can't fly over people. So I'm going to fly over people. Those are the people that are hurting our sport. And we're lucky, knock on wood, we don't have any of those kind of people at IDRA. We're a well-run organization. Our members are very professional, both recreational and commercial, and that's kind of what we need. That's what the hobby needs. That's what the market needs to police ourselves up, work together, and to stay safe and promote the growth of the community. And then as we get more data and show just a little bit more quantitative data or information about crashes to replace specific things in the hull, how much it costs, what about lipo fires? Once we get more data on that, then that's the next big thing we're working on with the underwriters. But like I said, for this talk, I just wanted to bring up insurance, talk about why I think you need it, just because I don't think you can accept that risk. As an individual, I know I can't afford to get in an accident and have to pay, for a new car and start a fire at my neighbor's house. And I'm not made of money. IDRA is not made of money. It's something that would ruin us and ruin myself, and especially my family. I have a wife and a baby daughter to worry about, and it's just not worth it. Get covered, have a good insurance policy that covers liabilities, have another organizations represent you, and fight for you when those bad days come, and make sure you know what you're buying, and make sure you ask the tough questions, do your due diligence, look at their documents to see when and where, or if not, when you're covered and when you're not. Get someone on the phone and ask those big questions. And then, if you find a policy that's written for you and what you need it for and affordable, get it. Like I said, you need to be covered, because you never know when something bad happens, because that's why it's called an accident. You didn't mean it. No one walks outside with their quad or outside with their drone and goes, hey, I'm going to get in an accident today. I'm going to hit a car. I'm going to hit someone. I'm going to start a fire. No one does that. So it's an accident. You don't know when it's going to happen. The best thing you can do is just be prepared, for that bad day. So that's pretty much all I had. I don't see any questions. And we'll do another talk in a bit, cover something else about insurance, something a little bit more specific. Like I said, I just want to cover, big spectrum, insurance, why you need it, what's out there, and some of the vulnerabilities that exist in our current hobby. And then I'll get more in depth to specific areas on the next live call or live video. So as always, stay safe, have fun. We'll see you at the next race.